Down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid-lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast, and I got to tell you, I am so happy to see all of you here, all of my whiskey warriors, and those of you who have come for, the first time. Welcome. Come on in. Take a seat, pick up a glass, and let's enjoy a little liquid beverage while I spew information about today's events. Today's, yesterday's, whatever, wherever the whiskey takes us, of course. I see a bunch of people popping into not only Rumble, but also Facebook. This is awesome, but I am going to tell you that Rumble is my preferred streaming outlet. So, if you could do me a favor, I'm at 411 subscribers over on Rumble. I'd like to hit 450. So if you haven't done so yet, slide on over to rumble.com, sign up for an account, and make sure that you follow the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel over there on Rumble. We have a bunch of people in Rumble, and I try to track everybody in terms of all of their, all of the accounts and all that. I try to track everything. I'm kind of looking down here and watching the chats going on, but some of them I may not be able to pick up, right away. So I apologize for that. One-man band, this is kind of how things are. So I may miss things. If I do, just go ahead and make sure that you let me know. Hey, coming up this Saturday, I have my third annual Thanksgiving Day special. And what that entails is, I have a friend of mine. He is an amateur chef. He's really good amateur chef. He probably could have done it professionally if he had wanted to. But he chose to go the more electrical route. Shocking, I know. But he's a great guy. We've done this, like I said, this is the third annual, so we've done this a couple times in a row. You got to come on over and see us on Saturday. We have some great recipes. He's been shipping them over to me over Messenger and stuff here over the course of the last week. I know that I have been hounding Barbie Guile to get Barbie's buns, some kind of a recipe together. I'm hoping it'll come together, but it all depends on timing because they, let's just say they are a very busy family over there. I myself am going to be bringing in some recipes as well. I know that I can almost guarantee you there might be a whiskey themed recipe in there somewhere, whether it's bourbon or scotch or whatever. I can almost guarantee it. But anyway, do me a favor and stop on by Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, to watch that wonderful show. All right. Tonight, I am drinking. I'm stepping out a little bit from my couple of comfort zone that I've had before, although this is still one of my top favorites, although the Four Roses did kick it down a partial notch. So this is no longer #1, but I am drinking the Redbreast 12 single pot still Irish whiskey for tonight. I am drinking it kind of neat with, because I actually have the whiskey stones in there to kind of give it a little coolness. So you can see those in there. They're just kind of sitting there, but this is the Redbreast 12 that I'm drinking tonight. And I do enjoy it, although I'm telling you, the Four Roses is getting up there. Also, tonight, I have back, because I've missed it the last couple of Wednesdays, due to storm outages, special guests, things like that. But tonight we have a wonderful pet of the week, a nice little kitty, and I'm glad to see her owner let me see. Let me just make sure that's, yep, it's her owner is in the chat tonight. So I am really happy to see that. So we're going to kind of get back to some of the things that we normally do here, although a lot of that is going to kick off and change. Steven Stiles is calling me. He forgot that I transmit on tonight. But anyway, he's been texting me too about about my first topic for the evening. But before I get into that, of course, I need to go ahead and pay homage to the Institute on the Constitution, and they were established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.whiskeymusings.online, to sign up, and while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is IOTC, that's India Oscar Tango Charlie, spelled phonetically, .whiskeymusings.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.whiskeymusings.online. Or if you want to purchase a absolutely fantastic stocking stuffer that pushes or maybe a valuable piece of information to somebody who does not know it, you can get this Constitution of the United States of America in this wonderful Saddleback leather-bound booklet. It has the Constitution of the United States on paper that is water-resistant. This is nice Saddleback leather. It has stitching for the binding. It's not a simple glue stitching. This is actual stitching that goes all the way through the book, to the center of the paper. It is a fantastic family heirloom because the maker of this has a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects. So if something happens to your Constitution, you can send it back to them and they will either fix it or replace it for you over the next 100-year warranty. So this is a fabulous thing. It's a great stocking stuffer. And if you want to just purchase this, you can go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. That's constitution.whiskeymusings.online. That's all lowercase, all together in there. The link is also in the description of the video, so you can head over to the descriptions on both Rumble and YouTube. You can also see it on Facebook for a little while too, and get the link to go get the Constitution of the United States for a wonderful, wonderful stocking stuffer. Spread the word of the greatest document to ever found, not only the greatest nation on this planet, but also the greatest, believe it or not, constitutional republic ever put together in our world history, the Constitution of the United States. You can also go and check out iotc.whiskeymusings.online as well, to the Institute on the Constitution, for some great books and information if you want to do that as a part of your Christmas shopping. All right. Okay, so that's enough. Thank you very much, and I appreciate them for allowing me to be an affiliate. I almost said brand ambassador. I'm not really a brand ambassador for them. They're an affiliate, so that's great. All right, so let's get into the main meat. Last night, 1 week out from the midterm election day, we had a not surprising, absolutely not surprising. I mean, if you were surprised by the announcement that Trump made at Mar-a-Lago, considering all of the buildup for it, if you were surprised by this, you are living either under a rock or living on Mars. Because honestly, I mean, the way that 2020 went down for this man, the way that he believes what happened with 2020, and, you know, to kind of be honest here, to be honest on this. Okay. So somebody is asking for the link to the store, to my store. Daybreak is asking for the link for the store. So I have a store. Granted, right now the Christmas code is not functional for everything just yet. I have it in most, but it's really easy. It's store.whiskeymusings.online. I'm really, really original with these things. So there's the link. It's going out and across everything. But here's the thing about this, okay, is that if you thought that this man, who honestly, I mean, I'll be completely honest, he is he's got a lot of narcissistic tendencies. And realistically, in order to be a politician, or to want to be a politician, I should say, you have to have a little bit of the narcissist in you in order to put yourself onto the front stage. In other words, what I mean by that is that you have to love the attention. You have to love being in the spotlight and everything else. You have to love having people come around. And you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, doing something like what I'm doing here also is a bit narcissistic. I will be the first one to admit it, because I enjoy getting fan mail, talking to all of you in the chat, so on and so forth. I really, really do appreciate everything that you guys do for me. And so, yes, there is a little bit of narcissism in that. The thing about this is to keep in mind now, to keep in mind about this is that his announcement was extremely early. I mean, extremely early. We're talking about 14, roughly, months to the election in 2024. My math may be off, but it's like 14 months. Seriously, this is, it is unprecedented in history for him to announce this early. Now, there are those that are out there that think that he might be doing it because of the fact that he's trying to clear the field. And I myself have talked about this in the past where, yeah, he is attempting to clear the field. He's attempting to show that he is the candidate. And in terms of this, I've said it before. I personally think that any other Republican who is worth their salt, especially someone like Ron DeSantis, for an example, their best move is to just stay out of the man's way. Let him do his thing for 2024. And when he finally gets elected, and when he goes and, gets into the White House, and when he finishes his 4-year term, he can't come back. So by the Constitution, he can't come back. So allow him the chance to revisit 2020. Because, I mean, seriously, Biden thinks that he can beat him again, and he might have that opportunity. I mean, I'll be honest with you. He might have that opportunity. But let's just allow Trump, give him the chance to go in. Because, honestly, I would like to see Trump get back into the White House on a favorable House and a maybe a little bit more favorable Senate. Now the Senate's going to be a little harder just because, I mean, in 2024, there's plenty more seats that are available that can likely go the Republicans' way. So let's be honest about that. I mean, 2024 has an open setup for the Republicans, provided they don't screw it up. I've got more on that in just a few minutes in terms of a post-mortem on our past election. But the thing about it is that Trump will essentially try to destroy just about anybody who stands against him because of the fact that he looks at it as you're either with me or you're an enemy. There is no middle ground. You're either one or the other. And the challenge or the problem that I think a lot of people are having right now is the fact that Trump, I'm going to be honest with you, when 2020 did not go his way, it actually made him, I think it actually made him worse, because what it did is it opened up the door for him to desire the seat a lot more. And a man who is that motivated will do a lot of things that he wouldn't normally do. For an example, he's already taken a shot at Ron DeSantis. He's already sent a shot across the bow of Ron DeSantis. Now, to Ron DeSantis' credit, he's decided to take a different path and not necessarily engage with Trump. Because, as Ben Shapiro puts it, one of Donald Trump's strengths is that when you engage with him, he actually is sort of like Doomsday in the comic book world, where he actually becomes stronger. The more you engage with him, the stronger he becomes. And so Trump going against DeSantis, and DeSantis basically saying, you know what, I'm not even going to talk about it. I've just got reelected here in Florida. That's, 2 years off. I'm not even interested in it. He is in a way kind of softening the effect of Trump and Trump's attacks on Ron DeSantis. Now, keep in mind, when you start getting into a primary, you're going to see very ugly behavior between the candidates. And I fully expect that there's going to be some other candidates in the Republican Party that are going to be popping in later on down the road. But the fact that Trump announced now, I think, is basically him declaring this is my ground. And the thing about it is that he already has a little less than 1/3 of the base. It essentially means that he already has a developed voter base. He already has the situation where he's coming in as the favored horse, let's say, in the race. And so for him to actually announce right now is very, very curious in my mind, mainly just because of the fact that he actually doesn't need this. In fact, he probably could have built up a lot more mysteriousness, let's say, a lot more anticipation had he just waited. So strategically, this is a very odd move, because now what he's going to have to do is he's going to have to stay relevant in everybody's mind for the next 14 months or so. Okay. Or more than that. I'm sorry. I'm still thinking, yeah, well, let's just say 8 months out, he's 14 months out. So from the first primary, that's where the calculation comes into play. So, for him to announce this early, I think he's marking his territory. He's basically daring the next person to come in. And honestly, I mean, if I were sitting in his shoes, I might have waited. I really probably would have waited. But I think Donald Trump is basically saying, I'm going and that's it. Now, I can almost guarantee you Biden being narcissistic as well. And he is also very narcissistic because of the fact that he has inflated his capabilities and his past and his credentials, let's say, and things like that. He tends to do that quite often. So he's got a narcissistic streak too. So I fully expect that Biden will actually be somewhat invigorated by this and will throw his hat back in the ring or be a little more assertive about coming back into the race. So it's going to be kind of interesting to watch this. But the one challenge there, or the one drawback that Donald Trump has with this is that most people are not that interested to watch this unfold over a very long period of time. See, unfortunately, Americans have this habit where we are very short-term memory. We don't want the long-term results, at least for most of us. We don't want the long-term results. What we're looking for is just short-term satisfaction. This is a byproduct of our throwaway society. This is a byproduct of us giving up fairly easily with high challenges put in front of us and so on and so forth. It seems to be a socialized tendency for us to just kind of get bored with things very fast. And unfortunately, this is going to make us get really bored really fast for Trump. Now, the mainstream media are loving this. Why? Because Trump makes them money. Trump gives them sound bites, gives them an enemy to fight against. It gives them a target to work with. Now, the thing about it is, though, is that Trump actually takes that. And again, like I said, he grows with the challenges against him. Okay. But this is going to be challenging for him to carry this all the way through to the first primary in 14 months. Now, the other thing that we have to deal with here is obviously his attacks, or the attacks by the Biden DOJ on him directly. Now, legally, this is not going to stop any current investigations or anything along those lines. However, it does put, as 3 Chevy brings up, this does kind of put the FBI and the DOJ in a bit of a, shall we say, a bit of a corner. Because if they go after him, and realistically, I mean, going after him for an administrative code violation, like what the Presidential Records Act actually is, for them to go after him for that, it's not gonna look good. Now, honestly, Biden, I don't think cares. I don't think Biden cares. And I honestly don't think Merrick Garland cares either, because they have a literal hard-on for Trump to keep him out of the White House, just like Liz Cheney does, which, by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if she announces to go and jump in the race. Maybe even, what was his name? Adam Kinzinger. Yeah, Adam Kinzinger. Okay, but again, this does bring an interesting facet to the entire thing because of the way that Donald Trump announced so early. Okay. Now, I do want to break down a couple of his key promises that he put out there. So the first one in particular, as far as the promises are concerned, were the fact, let me see, where is it? He obviously talked about the wall. He wants to continue that wall. That's fine. But honestly, I don't disagree with that. Not at all. Not at all. But he brings back a conversation about term limits for members of Congress. In terms of, in his mind, he wants to drain the swamp. And I think in a way he was kind of focused on a few certain individuals that are there. However, the thing about constitutional amendments is that there's only 2 ways. And if you have your Constitution, this little book, you would be able to look this up. There are only 2 ways for a constitutional amendment to occur. The first one is that 2/3 of Congress, well, first, it has to be proposed in Congress Then it has to be approved by 2/3 of that Congress. And then it has to go to the states, and all of the states have 3/4 have to agree to it in order for it to become a constitutional amendment. That's way number one. Way number two is through what's called a convention of states. And a convention of states basically means that the states all get together and propose the constitutional amendment outside of Congress's processes. Now, the Constitution, or the Convention of States, is very loosely defined in the Constitution. There's not a lot of detail there in terms of how that works. But here's the thing. As much as us as regular voters, that we want to have term limits put on Congress, the Congress people are not going to shoot themselves in the foot. That's like me going down to the bank where I hold my mortgage and saying, you know what? I know I can get a 4% on my house because I've got excellent credit, great references, so on and so forth. But instead of 4%, I want you to charge me 6%. I'm not that stupid. I am not going to do this. And so realistically, as much as he pushes on that promise, he's never going to get it. It's just not going to happen. There are way too many incumbent senators and representatives in both houses who want to keep their jobs. Why would you go, if you were a representative or a congressman, if you were a congressman, period, either a senator or a representative, why would you vote for an amendment that basically says that I can only serve for 2 terms, 3 terms, whatever it ends up being? In the case of senators are 6 years per term. In the case of representatives, they're 2 years per term. Now, the incumbency rate on both is really incredible, and I'll tell you why. And this is just my theory, my complete theory, and I've been thinking about this back when I was working several years ago, about 15, 20 years ago. I did a straw poll at my work, and I started asking people, hey, are you planning on voting? If so, have you looked at the issues? And honestly, most of the people that answered that yes, they were going to vote, over 3/4, if not almost 7/8 of them said, no, I haven't even looked at the issues. This was in October, okay, middle of October, where we were maybe 1 month away from the election at the time. And what happens here, folks, is again, goes back to that American short-term memory. We don't seem to want to actually delve deep within the issues and try to figure things out. Guess what? This is where I feel like my place is, because I actually love the details. I want to dig in deep. I want to learn as much as I can. So this is where my place comes in, and other places like this, like outlets like mine, who are going out there and giving you the details. Dan Bongino, Mark Levin, Mark Kay, Ben Shapiro. That's what we are here doing. And I understand I'm kind of putting myself into their position, but still, the point being is that's what we're here to do, is to give you all of the details and condense it down so that the Americans can go and just grab it all and be able to vote in an informed manner. The thing about it is, though, is that, again, we're dealing with short-term memories. How many people out there can actually sit there and say that they remember things that happened 3 months ago, or 2 months ago, or even longer than that, maybe 6 months ago? Our memories are not designed or wired around this, because we live in an age where information is coming at us so quickly that we can't necessarily retain everything, because if we do, then we're going to miss the next thing. And this is why the mainstream media is so geared toward this thought process, where all they do is give you this quick sound bites and then they move on to the next thing, whatever that next thing is. This is part of the reason why we do all of this. This is part of the reason why we're having problems with our elections, because people associate word association. They associate with incumbents that are in there. This is why the incumbency rate is so high, because of the fact that people don't bother researching what these people's choices were, what they have voted on, what they stand for. They just go with, oh, I've heard that person, so yeah, I'm just going to vote for them because my life's pretty good. It doesn't matter that much. My vote is only an individual vote. It's not going to make a difference. But one thing that came out of this election cycle, and I've said this on the program multiple times, your vote may not necessarily make a huge impact at the federal level. It might not even make a huge impact at the state level, but it does make an impact on the local level. And you know, the last couple of episodes, I talked about how we had things that we had some wins, we had some losses. It wasn't the red wave like we wanted, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing did occur that a lot of people are not picking up on. There was a lot of conservatives that were picked up in places, local places, where it really, really mattered. For an example, school boards. There were a slew of school board changes from Democrats over to Republicans, from liberals over to conservatives, in deep blue states, by the way. So it's those kinds of wins that we need to be able to grab onto, okay? So realistically, stuff like the big grand scheme of things we might not be paying attention to, but we should be paying attention to the local races and the local things. Now, we do need Trump. I think he has an opportunity here. I think that he should get in. I personally think that Ron DeSantis should actually not step into the ring. Now, reason being is because once Trump goes through, ideally he goes through in 2024, gets in as president, starts the ball rolling, the more strategic advantage that we have is going into 2028 with an extremely strong candidate. That would be Ron DeSantis, rather than trying to bring him in. And granted, I mean, there's going to be a 2-year break from the time that he finishes his gubernatorial term in 2020, up to 2026 after just being elected. So, he's going to finish in 2026. That will give him 2 full years to be able to jump in the ring, get on a few programs, start talking about, what he wants to do if he were to be president, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I personally think that is probably the better and more strategic way to go. Now, unfortunately, Ron DeSantis hasn't actually said any of this. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot can change in the future. The future changes a lot, which is another reason why Donald Trump announcing now seems to be a little odd and out of place. That being said, though, not all unexpected. For anybody that was thinking it elsewise, yeah, that isn't really going to be the big deal here. All right. So realistically, when you're looking at Trump's announcement, it wasn't surprising. It's a little odd. Strategically, I'm going to have to see what he does to stay relevant and be able to carry throughout this entire term. I think a lot of it has to do, again, with his narcissistic behavior. He is a show person. He's a showman. He wants to show that he is in charge, in control, that kind of thing. And I know that he has roughly about a third of the base, the Republican base, but there are plenty of people in there who realistically have challenges. Trump derangement syndrome exists in both parties. And I'm going to tell you right now that is just, that's going to be a challenge that he's going to have to overcome. I personally think that he will try to destroy in the primaries. He will attempt to destroy everything out there. And the challenge too, I mean, one of the things that was great about him in 2016 is not so great in 2022, 2023 into 2024 is the fact that the man will say things that most people are thinking, but don't want to say. And so like Amy points out here, please let him keep his mouth shut. This is one of the biggest problems that he has. See, Steve, and I know I've mentioned him before, but Steve Stiles and he comes from New York. And he has told me on multiple occasions, he's like, I don't think that the country is ready for a New Yorker, a true New Yorker, to run for president, because you can ask a New Yorker a question and they will give you an answer. It may not be the answer that you like, but it will be an answer. And New Yorkers don't necessarily keep their mouths shut in terms of, answering questions. They will answer the question. And they're going to do it in such a way that you may not like. So he's coming. He's going to do what Trump does, honestly. I mean, and I've described him as a wrecking ball. I actually think that's kind of who he is. If you are, again, like I said, if you are on his side, you're on his side. But the minute that he thinks that you're not on his side, he's just going to run right over you. He's just going to take that train and just boop, boop, and blam. That's it. So I don't want him to sit back and be a wuss. All right. I'm not looking for that. But the problem that you have is the man, unfortunately, has some problems with tact, which is what attracted him to everybody, what attracted people to him in 2016. But now he has actually been a serving president. He has a lot of baggage. And unfortunately, I think that he needs to take a step back if he's going to attempt to make another run. He's going to have to get some of those Trump derangement syndrome people onto his side. He was an anomaly in 2016. He was touted as an outsider. He's still attempting to tout himself as an outsider, but he can't necessarily call himself that anymore. So no offense, but I think he needs to kind of clean up his act a little bit. And realistically, that might have been an indication by his less than excited demeanor announcing at Mar-a-Lago. Now, one thing that Ben Shapiro brought up, which I actually thought was pretty spot on, okay, is the fact that he should have waited a little bit and then made it a big, huge spectacle, like a stadium where he had 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people to show or to display his draw power, his star power. Fill up the seats of the stadium and do it just like he does with all of his rallies. Show the long lines, show that the people are actually behind him. That would have been, I think, more of an impact than just announcing 1 week after the midterms. But you know what? Yeah, it's just one of those things. We're just going to have to watch. We're going to have to see. We're going to have to try and figure it out because, as far as the party is concerned, but I can also tell you that these two, if Ron DeSantis, or actually if anybody jumps into the same ring with Trump, I hope that they can at least keep the personal stuff out of it. I know it's not going to happen, but one can hope, because that's what really tears down the party, is when you start getting personal attacks back and forth. That's the big part that I have problems with politics in general, is the fact that nobody ever really talks about the policies, the topics. They all go to the mudslinging. And I think it would be a really, really good thing to show that the Republicans in this next primary can actually bring themselves out of that muck and actually talk about the issues and talk about the things that are most important for us. And if you want to attack somebody, fine, attack the current administration. Don't go and attack in between each other, because all that does is that can present a divided front, which is exactly what the Democrats want. The Democrats want a bloodbath. Don't give it to them. Just don't give it to them. Now, I saw this. Yeah, buddy. I hope Trump stays the same, but can crank up the kick-ass. That's fine. He can kind of stay the same, but I think he needs to do it in a much more refined and eloquent way. He's been president once already. He literally has the inside track and the favorite to win the nomination, but he needs to show that he can do it less so as a street fight, more so as a boxing match, if you kind of get what I mean. All right. This popped and I saw this. It actually came out on November 7th, but I saw this and I thought this is kind of interesting. The whole thing about January 6th and Trump being an insurrectionist and everything else. Well, guess what? The Huffington Post brought this out. Folks, we are not going to get away from the whole January 6th insurrection and so on and so forth talk. I kind of hoped that we would, but unfortunately, it's not going to happen. When Trump announces the candidacy, there's a watchdog group, called the Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, shortened up to the word CREW, is essentially that they are going to file a disqualification challenge under the 14th Amendment, which, for those of you that don't know, the 14th Amendment was put in after the Civil War in order to prevent someone who essentially seceded from the Union from running for president. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway. We're not going to get away from this. It's just not going to happen. They are going to keep bringing it up and bringing it up and bringing it up, even though we know that, first of all, that Trump had no knowledge prior and was not egging this on, unlike what they believe. Everything about this was made up. I mean, the whole January 6th thing committee was just a sham, partisan hack kind of show. I mean, seriously. Anyway, they're going to keep bringing it up, because they think it's a weak spot, a chink in Donald Trump's armor. All right. So before I move on, let me go ahead, because I'm noticing I kind of rambled on and on about Trump coming in. But so let me go ahead and do this. Where is it? Here we go. Let's go ahead and do this real quick.
Please check your mailbox. A new message has arrived.
All right, and tonight's Pet of the Week was submitted by 3 Chevy over on Rumble. Let's take a look at this little cutie. Ironically, this will be known as the cat that has no name, because 3 Chevy didn't bother to tell me what the cat's name was. Anyway, here's the little story about this cat. Apparently, according to 3 Chevy, he found this cat under a conveyor belt at his work. And so maybe we should call the cat Conveyor. I don't know. That doesn't sound really good for a female cat. But anyway, so at a warehouse where he was working, and she was about 5 weeks old at the time. Now, as we all know, anyone who owns a cat knows that cats choose their humans. They're not like dogs. Dogs will be owned by a human. Cats have staff, and they choose who they like and who they don't. And so this particular kitty has adopted 3 Chevy as a part of her family, and has allowed him to take care of her ever since. Now, according to 3 Chevy, he didn't get a pension plan. He ended up with the cat. So that was his retirement plan, was to get a cat. I don't know how effective that is, though, because I mean, cats, you have to spend money on them. But anyway, whatever. Hey, you know what? It's the enjoyment of the thing, right? I mean, I own a dog and 2 cats and 3 horses. So you can't blame me for any of that. But anyway, apparently Because she was so into survival, she still forages for food, like she did the day that he brought her home. And so they ultimately can't leave anything out because she will actually go after and eat anything. I'm guessing that has to deal with steak on the counter. Is probably a big no-no in 3 Chevy's house, would be my guess. But anyway, and he says here that we call her Big Girl. So she's apparently Big Girl. And there you go. That is the pet of the week. If you would like to submit your pet for pet of the week, you can go ahead and do so send me an email with the pet's photo, as well as any pertinent information like name, breed, so on and so forth. Send it to fans, that's Frank Alpha November Sierra at whiskeymusings.online. Fans at whiskeymusings.online. And right now I have no more animals in the queue. And so therefore your pet will be featured on next Wednesday for Pet of the Week. Thank you, 3 Chevy, for allowing us to take a look at your cat and for telling us that wonderful story about Big Girl. We do appreciate it. I like it because gives me something else to talk about other than current events, etc., etc. All right. So a lot of things went wrong in terms of the elections, both in 2020 and in 2022. I personally have my own reservations about the mail-in voting in particular here in Washington. I actually think that it's been manipulated ever since they put that in. However, one thing that is guaranteed is that absentee balloting, which was usually reserved for the military, used to break conservatives' way. Conservatives meaning Republicans. Well, now mail-in voting apparently has had a opposite effect. So take a look at this article. This comes from the Epoch Times in particular. We're dealing with Democrats' mail-in voting strategy outmaneuvered Republicans in every Pennsylvania county. Now, mail-in voting, of course, makes it, Dan Bongino has demonstrated or shown a New York Times article from back in 2012 that has demonstrated that there was, possibilities of rampant fraud, et cetera, with mail-in voting. Now, the New York Times is a Democrat-leaning, outright Democrat propaganda source for, that had talked about the troubles that you can have with mail-in voting. Absentee ballots were for a specific purpose, and that was for people who went overseas for the military or weren't in their state to be able to show up and vote with ID and everything else. But the whole idea of going to an all mail-in voting system, to me, is a little questionable because, first of all, you have the possibility of your ballot getting lost. Second of all, you have your ballot being passed, being passed along through potentially unsecure channels. You also have the possibility that someone could get your ballot from the mail and fake your signature. I can tell you my signature has completely changed from the time that I signed up until now. I have a few letters that I utilize that are fairly common in my name, but the fact of the matter is that my signature has changed so much that I don't even think that anybody who is a poll worker, who just signs up to be a poll worker, much less anything else, can actually validate for 100% certain. They're not a handwriting expert. These people are not handwriting experts. They look at it and they just kind of look at the piece of paper and they go, you know what? Okay, that kind of looks right. Kind of, sort of. There's no way that anyone could sit here and validate for 100% certain that whoever signed that ballot actually is the person, because there's no other verification. There's no picture, there's no thumbprint, there's no nothing. So one of the big things with regards to mail-in voting is the lack of verification. I'm sorry, but I personally believe that we need to go back to the idea of voting in person with a photo ID. I mentioned this last episode. I want that photo ID to actually be federally issued, meaning a passport or some sort of government ID. Plain and simple. In order to be able to vote in elections. And I don't think that's really all that hard. I mean, people can go and get, a driver's license. They can go and get IDs. I mean, I know people that have gone and gotten passports. I mean, I personally think the federal government should just give you a passport on your 18th birthday. It should be a mandatory requirement, just like the Selective Service is. Just make it across the board. Everybody gets a passport. But that's me. And so, yeah. So this is definitely a problem, especially when you have mail-in voting that keeps showing up. I mean, this is talking about Pennsylvania in particular, but you have several states that have come up with things like this and trends like this, where absenteeism used to break mostly Republican or conservative, because that's what the military generally consists of, versus mail-in voting. Yeah, this is not good. And honestly, until we fix some of these things, we're really not going to be in a position to be able to take advantage of this stuff. And that being said, let me just see something here before I go and pop this up. I want to make sure I've got the right one. Oh, where is it? Here we go. That being said, this article that came out from the Federalist talks about Republican leaders have a choice. You can roll back early voting and mail-in ballots, or we have to learn to take advantage of them in terms of Republicans. I personally think it should be rolled back. Now, the challenge here, which, a lot of people, especially these journos, even the good ones that are on the right, have troubles with, is the fact that the Constitution specifically states that it is the state legislatures that determine how the voting occurs within each state's borders. So you, again, would have to go to all 50 states and get all 50 legislatures to do the exact same thing, which is part of the reason why, so there's so much of a disparaging difference in terms of counting, where Florida, one of the most populous states in the union, can get it all done in one night, and you have California, who is still counting right now. This is all due to the disparaging difference within the states. Now, I am not advocating for federal takeover of our elections. However, some sort of a standardization or guideline might actually be a good thing, as long as it doesn't include mail-in voting, as long as it doesn't include being able to just walk up to a polling place and not have a federally issued identification for your voting. Those are just asking for trouble if you don't have those things. And so, yeah, that is something that has to be definitely on the ballot. And in fact, Buddy points this out, that they should contact their representative and senators about voting issues. And honestly, Buddy, it's not your federal ones that you should be contacting. Again, it's the state ones, because they're the ones that take care of this kind of thing in the states. In fact, I still have questions, even though I don't live there. I still have questions about the whole Katie Hobbs, Kari Lake scenario, where Katie Hobbs should have, had she been a ethical person, would have recused herself, knowing that she could have been deemed a problem with her being Secretary of State and overseeing the election for her being a gubernatorial candidate. So I honestly think that yeah, we've got some serious problems in the voting system. We've got some serious issues, and the only thing that's going to correct it, honestly, is for people to get active within the states to get things taken care of. And you are correct. Elections are the domain of the individual states, with the exception of the date, which Congress actually has control over that. But the states are the manner and the places. The Congress can deal with the date on the elections. All right. Let's see. What else do I have? That one kind of came out of order, so I got to take a look at what we have here. All right. I know it's disappointing. Everybody's going to freak about this, but I'm going to be honest with you. Again, no surprise here. Absolutely no surprise here. Senate Republicans reelect Mitch McConnell as leader and reject Rick Scott's bid. One of the challenges that we have with a lot of this has to deal with the fact that a lot of people want change, but the ones that want change are not the ones in control. Just like with, term limits and things like that. These people do not want to shoot themselves in the foot, which is exactly what they would do if they were to try and change leadership or change the party, change all of this. It's going to be incredibly difficult. What you're dealing with here is literally a tick that has been on the dog for years and has dug itself into the dog's skin. We need to extract that tick slowly and carefully. We need to pull it out slowly and carefully, but keep in mind that if you pull too fast and you rip that tick off, the head's going to stay in the skin. We don't want that. And then it becomes infected, becomes all sorts of problems. We don't want that. So it's going to take us a lot of time. The good news is a lot of these people, especially the ones who have been there forever, are getting older, like Nancy Pelosi, like Mitch McConnell. What we have to do at a local level and at a state level and at the federal level, we have to make sure that we get in grassroots voting, grassroots processes and get these people out. The voting is the only way to get rid of these people. Honestly, it really is. And no, it sucks. I know it sucks, but voting is going to be the only way for us to do this. We have to get a grassroots effort outside of the parties. We cannot depend on the Republican Party. We cannot depend on the Democrat Party. We even cannot depend on any independents because, as I've said before, we literally are in a two-party system. But what we have to do is we have to find those Republican candidates in particular who are constitutional conservatives, who are MAGA-style Republicans, American First candidates. Those are the ones that we need as a people need to throw our weight behind. We've got to get rid of these old boy, blue blood, network kind of people. We need to get them out of government. And the only way to do that, honestly, is to make sure that we vote for candidates that are younger, that are not part of the establishment. And we just got to get motivated, folks. We've got to get motivated to get involved and get these long-term incumbents out. We have to get this out. We have to get these people out. So this is really, really a big deal. Now, one thing that the GOP can do, being in the House of Representatives, is they can start doing things with oversight. And I personally think in this particular one, the Washington Times brings this out, where this is I think it's an opinion piece, honestly. But GOP oversight can and should be the new name of the DC game. I agree. We need to start focusing that the Republican Party has to start focusing on the issues with the DOJ, the issues with, Biden and his just willy-nilly spending. We have to deal with all kinds. We need to investigate all of these things. We need to bring this stuff out. And, honestly, this is seriously what we should do. And I think it should actually be investigations should definitely be on the docket. Not necessarily investigations into like voting or any of that, because again, that goes to the states, but definitely start going after the Biden admin, start going after Biden on the Hunter laptop, the information contained within there. Go after the FBI's use of things like the Pegasus program to spy on Americans, the abuse of the FISA court that caused the whole Russian collusion hoax. All of this stuff needs to be put into perspective and definitely gone after. People like Chip Roy, Jim Jordan, Ted Cruz, Senator Grassley, and I think Josh Hawley has been after people. Rand Paul going after people like Fauci. These are the party hopefuls and the party leaders that we need to start focusing on to help them do all of the things that they need to do in order to clean up government. And honestly, I mean, I just don't see any other way around it. You got to have to work within the system for now to start getting things taken care of in that particular space. Okay. So that I think should be on one of the top things, especially with the Biden administration and the Hunter Biden laptop. Interesting little conversation that I was having with the wife this morning. She was talking about how she couldn't understand how Hunter was so protected. And I basically said this: if Hunter was a liability, an actual liability that could not trace back to Joe, that there literally was no connection between Hunter and Joe Biden, Hunter would be dropped like a rock and sent out to the wolves to deal with him completely on his own. There would be no Hunter Biden. There wouldn't be an issue with Hunter Biden getting his taxes taken care of and everything else. The mere fact that Hunter is so protected by the Democrats, by the mainstream media, indicates that there is some relevance to the laptop and the information that we've been hearing and the 10% for the big guy. There is something there. Now, how deep it actually is, one can only speculate at this point. But the fact of the matter is this: there is a connection, because if there wasn't, Hunter would be dropped quickly and made to go away. He would be gone. He wouldn't be sitting in the spotlight. He wouldn't be protected. He wouldn't be, being coddled per se for this particular scenario. So there is something there. Now, how deep it goes, I don't know, but these investigations need to figure that out. The GOP needs to go after them and do this. Okay. All right. Okay. So there's a rumor being floated. And I'll be honest with you, I think it actually stems from this opinion that was sent out by The Hill. But there's a rumor being floated about some shenanigans in order to try and get Gavin Newsom into the White House as president without him being elected. Now, if you watched my program a little while back where I was comparing Jimmy Carter versus Joe Biden, and I went through this in detail, that is exactly how Gerald Ford became president. Gerald Ford became president without being elected. He is the only person to have done so. And the reason for that is because Nixon and his vice president, and I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but Nixon and his VP got voted in. that VP, was under a bunch of investigations for tax evasion. That VP resigned. When that VP resigned, Nixon nominated Gerald Ford, who was in the Senate, I believe as a senator at the time. So he nominated Gerald Ford in. Gerald Ford then, when Nixon resigned his post due to Watergate, Gerald Ford became president and then, of course, went up against Jimmy Carter in the elections and got beat. Spiro Agnew, thank you very much. We got a bunch of different people who have popped this up, but Spiro was the full thing. Spiro Agnew, thank you. I don't know why I couldn't remember that name. It just doesn't, I should have remembered. But anyway, so there's this game plan that was floated by this opinion, Douglas McKinnon, who is an opinion contributor, and this was done out on 11/12. Check this little thing out. So the game plan apparently is that Biden will replace Harris with Newsom, and then Biden resigns, ultimately putting Newsom in as president. Now, first of all, constitutionally, that can't happen. And I'll tell you why. The VP, Harris, cannot just be arbitrarily replaced by the president. Doesn't happen. Harris would have to be 25th by or would have to have the 25th Amendment put on them or on her while as being president. So Biden would actually have to resign first, then Harris becomes president, then they 25th her for something like dereliction of duty after she picks Gavin Newsom to be the vice president, and then Gavin Newsom then turns in to be the vice president. But I don't see, first of all, I don't see Biden doing it because Biden he is not going to want to resign. He will have to be probably drug kicking and screaming, unlike Trump, who actually left the White House fairly calmly in 2020. I honestly believe that Biden will probably throw a temper tantrum. Anyway, Jarhead popped it up. Okay, so yes, Ford was a representative from Michigan. That's what it was. Not a senator. I can't remember. I knew he was in Congress. I just couldn't remember exactly which house. But anyway, so this is kind of an interesting little opinion, but obviously Douglas McKinnon hasn't thrown everything out. Yeah, they'd have to be 25th or die. I just don't want to go there as far as the death goes. But the point is that Biden would have to go down. Harris would have to come into play. Then Harris would have to nominate Gavin Newsom as VP and then go and get either 25th, die, or resign from office. Because, obviously they could resign. But I don't see either Biden or Harris doing that. I think this would be an incredible long shot if it even did come into play. Just like I've said that Trump should have been nominated as Speaker of the House and he should have gotten the Speaker of the House position. Then they could have 25th, both Harris and Biden, gotten rid of both of them all at once had we won both the House and the Senate and instill Trump as the president for the last couple of years and then have him, or for the last year and a half roughly, and then have him run in 2024. That would have been interesting, but that was an extremely long shot for that. So anyway, I just thought that was funny. My gosh. Anyway, I just thought that was really funny. And by the way, the FBI, just to kind of shift gears here, but the FBI has given us a promise. They have promised, and I already mentioned and alluded to this, but they have promised that they will permanently end the use of the Pegasus spyware. Now, for those of you that might not know what this is, but Pegasus is a spyware that was actually put together by a company called NSO in Israel. It is literally a no-click virus that takes complete control of your phone in terms of being able to grab anything, text messages, emails, camera, microphone. It can do all of this without user interaction. This thing is very, very dangerous. All you have to do is receive a text message that has this code in the back end, and your phone is completely hijacked. The Israelis, and actually I shouldn't say the Israelis, but the Saudis have been accused of using it against Khashoggi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but anyway, the newspaper person who was killed. So basically they're basically saying that they will not use the Pegasus spyware at any time against Americans. Well, we've already seen how they've used FISA warrants illegally against Americans, because the FISA warrants are supposed to be for foreign entities, not for American citizens. In fact, American citizens are not supposed to have their identities revealed, as was the case with General. Oh shoot, his name's escaped. I can think of I can see his face, but anyway, the point is that, yeah, the FBI is going to give away one of its best tools, because they can point it at an IP or a telephone number or an ESN number and get it dropped onto that phone without the user's knowledge. Give me a break. Yes, Flynn. Thank you, Outlaw Dogs. Flynn, Mike Flynn. So anyway, I mean, honestly, I don't trust them. I don't trust this at all. I really can't believe that they're going to put away a powerful tool that they could use for this. Honestly, it's just, it's a farce. It's a total farce. And again, I don't trust Christopher Wray anyway. He needs to go. The whole FBI needs to be dismantled, in my opinion. They have gone far away from their motto of fidelity, bravery, and integrity, especially the integrity part. But anyway, so that's really, ugh. It's scary to even think that there's code like that that's out there. But you know, it is what it is. All right. And actually, Day, believe it or not, you mentioned VPN. VPN won't help, because this thing collects all of the information on the endpoint, and the endpoint is the one that actually encrypts everything for transmission across the VPN. So this doesn't matter. The VPN won't matter. There is literally nothing you can do for Pegasus at all. There is nothing that you can do for Pegasus. If you own a mobile device that Pegasus can target, there is literally nothing you can do for it. The best way, if you're really that outside of that, you just don't use mobile devices, period. Don't use any electronic form of communication if you're really interested in that. In fact, you should go back and listen to my my podcast, one of my episodes about a year ago or so, where I talk about privacy. Privacy is dead. Anyway. All right. So we've all heard about, shifting gears a little bit here, we've all heard about Biden and his student loan forgiveness plan. Well, it's been taken to court in a couple of different places. Both courts have suspended it, dealing with the fact that it's not constitutional. But what's really funny, and I have a meme on this that I've been posting on social media. If you haven't seen this on social media, I'm telling you, you should go and check out some of my social media places that are going right here, that are going across. You should check it out, because I've put this out there. Nancy Pelosi admitted a long time ago that Biden does not have the power to forgive student loan debt. Constitutionally, again, getting your little Constitution booklet, the Congress is the one that holds the purse strings. And so Congress is the only one that could do any kind of forgiveness of debt, not the executive branch. The executive branch is supposed to ask Congress for money in order to do what they need to do in order to run the country, and Congress is supposed to give that to them. This is part of the reason why some of the things like the FBI and everything else can actually be defunded by Congress. Money that is earmarked to go to places like that can actually be kicked out. So, yeah. So anyway, This is, this is going to be a problem for him. I don't know where anybody, I mean, obviously the young people that are out there that don't know anything about the Constitution, haven't read it, don't understand it. They think that government can just do anything, but this guiding document right here, which is why you should put this in this as a stocking stuffer into every single young person that you can find in your family who doesn't pay attention, realistically should learn about this document and should learn about the rules that we're supposed to have, and the guardrails that we're supposed to have on this. But, Nancy Pelosi is right. She is correct. Sad to say, as far as the whole point of Biden being able to forgive student loan debt. And, yeah. Anyway. So yeah. That's definitely a bit of a headache, I think, for Biden. Biden is actually on par right now to be the number one overturned president ever. I mean, far from being the worst president in modern history. He's certainly on his way. Okay. And the last thing, I have a couple other articles in the show notes, with regards to, parents and suing school boards and New York, some of New York's policies, but I'm not going to get to those. So do me a favor, go down, take a look, grab them out of the links if you're interested in that. But this last one is, from the Washington Examiner. I just want to say the beatings are going to continue until morale improves. That's a Dan Bongino common saying. I don't know where he got it. But once again, the White House is looking to spend more money and add to our inflation, which the Inflation Reduction Act, which doesn't actually reduce inflation, actually increases inflation, goes ahead and, asks for more money for Ukraine. Take a look at this number. So they're asking Congress for more than 37 billion. Yes, that's 37 with a B, billion in new Ukraine aid. Once again, the federal government has decided to spend money that we, the American people, do not have in order to bolster a war that we really don't have necessarily any interest in. I mean, outside of, Joe Biden, and the money laundering schemes and everything else. But yeah, it's just, I mean, this is, I don't know how many times we have to say this. This is basics. I mean, even Reagan said, inflation is the cost we pay for all of the free government programs that are out there. Inflation is caused by printing more money. They keep printing the money and it chases fewer goods, which causes inflation. It also, and it's pretty damn simple. This is economics 101. But of course, Biden, being part of the public sector, doesn't know anything about economics and certainly doesn't know anything about balancing a checkbook or gas prices or anything like that. But once again, the White House is asking Congress for more money for a war that we shouldn't even be a part of. What a mess. And you know what's even worse about this, honestly, is that everybody who voted against the Republicans, for whatever reason, you guys have just made it so that we have 2 more years of some serious problems. I mean, the Republicans taking over the House today at 219, I think was the total seats at this point. The Republicans taking over the House can do a little bit to stem the tide and the flow, but it's not realistically going to be enough. You guys, I mean, obviously, and Dan Bongino talked about it today, and he said this, and I agree with him. Apparently, things have not gotten bad enough yet to cause the American people, or the majority of the American people, to want to make the change. So this is really, I mean, this is horrible. We're just in for another 2 years of suck, and the suck hasn't gotten bad enough for everybody else to jump on board and want to change the current regime. and make changes. All right. That is my final Whiskey Musings thought. Do me a favor, if this is your first time to the program and you like what you see, go check out my other videos. If you have the inkling to go ahead and do so, please sign up for a Rumble account and make sure you follow the Whiskey Musings broadcast over on Rumble. Like I said, I'm at 411. I'd like to bump up to 450 Whiskey Warrior followers and subscribers. So do me a favor and do that. Don't forget, Saturday night is our Thanksgiving recipe special with Captain Unicorn. I got to remember his code name, Captain Unicorn. And also on Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I am opening up my phone line and I want to hear from you. I want to hear from all of my listeners as to what you are thankful for. So I will open up the phone line. I'll announce it on that Wednesday, right before Thanksgiving, but I am looking forward to talking to each and every one of you who is brave enough to call in and talk to me about what you are thankful for. So we will see you Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific for that special Thanksgiving recipe episode. And we'll see you next time on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everybody.